This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update for October 22nd, 12:30 p.m. Let's go ahead and start out this update with the graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center. We have Tropical Storm Richard just east-northeast of Honduras. Hurricane watch is out for Honduras. We have an area disturbed weather midway between Africa and the Lesser Antilles. Not expecting much development with that. And we have Invest 90L that there's a 30% chance of development of this system, and this could become the next named storm, which would be Sherry. And the indications from a couple of the global models are that this is going to remain weak, but could actually develop somewhere in this area here well into next week. And it's very unusual for a system to make it all the way across this time of the year. Usually that stops in October, in the middle of or earlier mid-October is about the latest you'll ever see a system make it all the way across. But this models indicate that, so we're going to have to watch that closely. But right now, all eyes are on Tropical Storm Richard. Let's get to the HurTrack program and show you the animation of what happens here over the coming days. This system comes very close to Honduras starting on Saturday. And then on Sunday, the system becomes a hurricane just north of the islands of Utila and Honduras, north of Honduras. And then by Monday, this system is approaching Belize, and this could come right into near Belize City as a Category 1 or potentially Category 2 hurricane. Now, this thing could really crank up if it stays off the coast of Honduras, and that's what people need to be very aware of. Belize has a rich hurricane history of major, intense hurricanes coming in there in October and November, so they need to be aware of that in Belize. And then going into Wednesday, this will reemerge into the Bay of Campeche according to the National Hurricane Center, and probably will not redevelop due to the cool sea surface temperatures and wind shear over here. But this is all speculative, and it could change down the road. We'll get into all the scenarios in just a second. The hurricane hunters have been out there this morning flying around, and let's go ahead and zoom in on what they found so far. And there's that little white dot. That is a vortex message. That's the center of circulation, and this is from a couple of hours ago. And we have a pressure of actually 1010 millibars, very weak system out there. Maximum surface winds around 15 to 20 miles an hour. Maximum flight level winds 37 knots. Now, if we go back a few hours, there's the last vortex message before that. Maximum surface winds 37 knots. And if we go even further back, you'll see that going into yesterday's vortex messages, there were yesterdays up in here. So again, these are all yesterday's, and here we are today. So there is a little bit of a westward drift to this system, but it remains very weak. All right, here is the cone of error from the National Hurricane Center, and let me pan this out. We have a error anywhere from the northern Yucatan Peninsula. In fact, it could be in 5 days over here off the northeast tip of the Yucatan, or it could be well inland in Central America or Mexico. But again, the forecast calls for this on Wednesday morning to be entering the Bay of Campeche, and again, that could be, there's a wide cone of uncertainty. That's why there's a circle on the map here. Here are the expected wind gusts. Again, winds gusting near 100 miles per hour inside this red area, and mainly hurricane force winds in northern part of the country of Belize and southern Yucatan Peninsula. While I have this map up, I want to mention that one of my top 5 cities for being impacted this year is Punta Allen, which is right in here. So we'll see if that area gets directly impacted by a hurricane this year. So far they've had a few close calls, but nothing has come directly in there. Now here is the current position inside the yellow circle of Tropical Storm Richard. And the only storm that was right in the same exact position as Richard, the same exact time of the year between the 21st and the 23rd of October, was Hurricane Mitch. And of course, we all know what happened with Mitch, or many people anyway. They know it got up to Category 5 status right in here. And then it took a nosedive right into Honduras, dumped a ton of rain in there, killed over 10,000 people between Guatemala, Honduras, and all these areas in here. But eventually it came into the Bay of Campeche, crossed the Yucatan, and went into South Florida as a tropical storm. So this shows you even when you have a system that's over land for that many days, it can still maintain its tropical characteristics and still be a factor down the road for redevelopment. So this is something we need to watch closely, even though the forecast right now shows many models showing this staying over land for a couple of days. Here are the models from the Weather Underground, and you can see that we're a little off the screen there. There we go. The indications are the GFDL. Again, the tropical models want to take this through the northern Yucatan and up like this. In fact, I'll show you the image of the H-WRF in just a minute. It doesn't even really take it into the Yucatan. It kind of stalls it right off the east coast of the Yucatan, but the tropical models want to take this into the Gulf of Mexico. The other global models want to meander it around down here, and some of them actually take it back into Mexico and never take it north. Let's go ahead to our next image here. This is the H-WRF. This is the best performing model so far of all the models on Tropical Storm Richard. The H-WRF is off by about 84.9 miles over a 5-day period. This is including when it was Invest 99L. And this has it going just off the coast of Belize and meandering around down here and not getting inland. So that could be interesting down the road to see what happens if this gets hung up in the Western Caribbean Sea. But again, most global models do take it into the Yucatan Peninsula. Now here are all the models from the HERTRAC program, and we ran all the models just to see what the consensus is. And again, the consensus is pretty clear that this is going to go into Central America and the Yucatan. There's your majority of models right there. But the AEMI is a very good model that handled Hurricane Wilma very good back in 2005, and the AEMI takes this eventually north and then east towards Florida. So the AEMI, again, did the best job 5 days out on Hurricane Wilma. It was off by about 328 miles. The only people that did better than that model were the National Hurricane Center forecasters at 310 miles off on Wilma. So the AEMI does need to be paid attention to. This is long-term down the road. But again, there should be shear in the Gulf. This wouldn't be a formidable system up here, but it would be, nevertheless, it would still be Richard up in this area if this does happen. Now, running all the models at tropicalatlantic.com, ran 53 total models, and it's about 50-50. Half of the models keep it below this line right here, around the 20-degree line here. That most of the models keep it below, about half of the models keep it south of that line, and half the models take it north into the Gulf of Mexico. So it's 50-50 right now as to which is going to happen. Is it going to go north or is it going to stay south? It's really an open call right now on that. And here are the sea surface temperatures, and this is another factor. If this stays in the Western Caribbean Sea, there's a lot of heat content and warm sea surface temperatures to work with in here. But once it gets into, if it gets over in this area here, the temperatures are much cooler in the low 80s. Even the upper 70s in some cases, and it's not really that favorable for development, and the wind shear should be over a little bit higher over in that area too. But if it stays in the Western Caribbean, it would be a whole different ball game, and this is why I've alerted people in Florida to pay very close attention to this, because if this does make it into the Gulf, more than likely most models indicate this will take off to the northeast, so it will be affecting Florida in some sort of a way. The question is, does it turn here or does it turn over into the Gulf? Most models right now indicate it's going to make it into the Gulf on the western side of the Yucatan Peninsula, and that would be better news for any potential redevelopment of the system. Now here's the wind shear going out 72 hours, and again, we focused on this yesterday. Look at the Gulf of Mexico right now. We have 30 to 40 to 50 knots of shear in the Gulf, and then in 72 hours, it backs off a little bit, but there's still wind shear out here around 20 to 30 knots right in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. So again, if it stays closer to the eastern Yucatan and near Cuba, it'll have a much more favorable environment. If it goes west of the Yucatan and north, it'll be in a much higher wind shear pattern at that time. All right, let's take a look at some images. First of all, here is the floater loop visible shot of Tropical Storm Richard, and again, the hurricane hunter's been flying in there and finding a very weak system, and the reason is because the center continues to hang out on the western edge of the ball of convection. It's not underneath here. If that was the case, we'd have a hurricane brewing pretty quickly, but it's over in here, and that's why the system is not really strengthening that much. There's a big blowup of convection, and once that convection makes its way over the top of the center of circulation, this should ramp up in a hurry. But right now it remains somewhat disorganized. It heads off to the west and west-northwest. We wanted to show you the models. The best performing model on intensity so far, the AVNI, which is a variation of the GFS, and that keeps this around, tops off at a moderate tropical storm around 55 knots as it approaches the Yucatan Peninsula, and then of course it weakens over land, and eventually the system, if I can find it here, the AVNI pretty much keeps it a weak system because it keeps it over land in Central America, 30 knots, and eventually at about 168 hours it does make it back out over the water and strengthens a little bit back up to about 50 miles per hour. So we'll see if that pans out. But the AVNI best performing on intensity. Quickly, let's take a look at the water vapor loop, and here is the dry air that is retrograding back to the northwest. Talked about this in yesterday's update. This should allow for some additional intensification. This could very well ramp up into a significant hurricane before it approaches the Yucatan or Belize on Monday. So we got to keep a close eye out for that. People in Belize and the Yucatan really need to be paying attention and getting ready now, because apparently the model consensus is pretty sharp on bringing this in somewhere in the middle of the Yucatan or Belize. That's it for now. We'll be back with another update tomorrow on this situation. We'll see how the models unfold. That's it for now. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.